Hello, everyone. My name's Yao, if you haven't met me before, and welcome to a Notion UK stream on project management and portals. And yep, thanks everyone for coming. And I'm joined today by Sandra. Sandra, I'm going to try and add you to the stream.
Hi, everybody.
So yeah, I am a Notion ambassador. Sort of started using Notion just under 2 years ago. I was so impressed with it that I created a course, became a Notion ambassador, and sort of do these regular meetups online. Used to be sort of offline. I'm based in London, but yeah, excited to be sharing the platform with Sandra today, who is a Notion consultant. Sandra?
Hi, everybody. So yeah, I am not an official Notion consultant through Notion, but I do Notion consulting, and I work with Marie Poulin inside of Notion Mastery. I'm her assistant coach, and I do all of the consulting under the Notion Mastery umbrella. And I'm excited to be here. We're going to have fun.
Great. So yeah, what we're going to do today, I'm going to start by maybe just sort of demoing how I use Notion for project management, including team portals. And then Sandra's going to share some sort of experiences, I guess, with sort of consultancy, with sort of real life companies and sort of things that have happened in implementation and best practices. You know, we can have some time for questions as well. So if you do have any questions at any point, do feel free to comment on the chat, or you could also join us on live stream video. So if you do want to do that, I am going to share a link in the YouTube comments. So I think we can have up to about 4 or 5 people at the same time. So if anyone wants to join, do click on the link and feel free to introduce yourself. And if you're not too shy, and perhaps talk about, you know, what you're hoping to get out of the session. And if you sort of have any sort of questions around project management in Notion in particular, so that, you know, when we talk, we can try and address those too. Okay. But otherwise, I will do our best to respond to comments. Okay, so let's make a start then. Yeah, so there are a lot of tools out there, aren't there, for project management? And, you know, my belief is that Notion is one of the most powerful and flexible ones out there. Since it's been going for a few years now, there are a lot of Notion templates already as well for project management. I do use it for both my personal and work projects. And what I want to focus on today is the reason as well I decided to host this, as well as sort of getting in touch with Sandra, is that, you know, I had a revelation that I could sort of get a project, everything to do with a project on one page. And also, even in that page, have that as a collaboration tool when I'm sharing that project, either information or comments with other people. And Notion can be something that can be used for, you know, all sorts of different types of projects. So we're talking about projects and portals, and just wanted to clarify what I sort of mean by a portal. I say it's a workspace online where you can share information and collaborate with others. And what I'm trying to do is, you know, trying to create a private workspace and a shared workspace for the same project, so that we get a complete picture of a project all in one page. Now, I'm going to try and share my screen, if you bear with me. Hold on, share screen, still getting to grips with the technology. And now you should see my desktop. And here is my live homepage. Always curious to see other people's homepage. Okay. So let's sort of give you an example, actually, what I mean sort of by a portal. And even, it could be for an even a very, very sort of small project. And perhaps I'll pick something that most of us are familiar with, which is travel. And I've got a few sort of places I've been. And I've got a particular template. Let's just go for skiing 2022. I was meant to go this year, but coronavirus has obviously prevented that. So in this page, we've got sort of travel details. And what I found is, sometimes I go traveling with other people and I want to share things with them, such as, the accommodation, maps, ideas on what to do, the dates. If we sort of got flights together, sort of getting there and back. So I've sort of created sort of this template. However, when I'm traveling, I also may have some information that only I want to see, even though it's to do with this trip. So for example, a travel checklist. So this travel checklist won't be relevant to my friends who are traveling with me. So that's why I put it sort of somewhere else in the private pages. And also obviously things such as passport and insurance details. So what you could do, Notion can be very flexible. If you actually don't want it as a separate page, we can turn that into a toggle. There we go. If you prefer it that way. So there's many different ways to do it. But if I was to share this with friends, I have this other page that I would actually share with friends. This one, which I would rename perhaps. But on this page, I have a database where it's the same pages as you saw back here on my private page. So I wouldn't be sharing this page because of this, but in the shared travel page, I would click share and I'd either, create a public link in which people can actually see this page. And if I was to give them permission to add things here, we would also share this travel info page here, this database. So that would be shared. That's sharing with anyone, but we could also work on adding people individually in your workspace. And I believe you can have as many sort of guests as possible. What are the limits for guests for the accounts? Are you aware of that, Sandra? Oh, not hearing you. Hold on one second. Let me just unmute you. I think you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so I think on the personal free plan, you are limited to 5 guests, but once you're paying for it, I think it's unlimited.
Okay, yeah. I haven't gone over 5 personally myself, but Sandra, I think you're going to be discussing some of those scenarios and things to watch out for there. So yeah, that's example of one of a sort of a very sort of simple project, I guess. But what I liked about this, and I didn't do that with previous places, is that I'm able to have one page, this page, to have everything to do with my trip, including private stuff, but still have and share information with regards to whatever I want to share with my friends. So currency is relevant to everyone, and here I think in another version I've embedded a currency website page as well. So I'm actually going to share this template with you near the end of session, near the end of the session as well, if anyone's interested in that. Okay, so that's what I mean by a portal, but hopefully you can sort of get the idea that there could be other scenarios in which this sort of private and shared functionality is useful. So for example, let's say if you're a tutor or a coach, you might have some private notes and then you might want to have a shared page with those that you are teaching or your customers. If you are a business and you have customers, maybe you can have a shared customer page that would be useful to share information or for them to share information to you or collaborate on a particular project. And also maybe sort of an event as well. So if you've got sort of things around organizing an event and you're in charge of organizing events, there may be things that you don't want to share with your attendees, but you could have a shared public event page in which you can share sort of key information about your event. So what I was doing previously, I was like getting a bit confused actually with, oh, I've got all this information, but how can I share with other people while still having the same page, or I had to create a new page for private. And this is sort of how I've got around it. Any other thoughts on sort of potential use cases, Sandra, or are those sort of the ones you've seen as well?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. The ones I see the most often are coaches who want to share resources with their clients. Also, like podcasters. I've seen a couple podcast studios, I should say, that want to share like checklists and to-do lists with their clients, like to go through methodology. Those tend to be a little more complex. I mean, before I was doing Notion consulting, I was managing my corporate projects on a completely separate system. I implemented a SQL-based ERP system before I did Notion, and I managed those projects inside of Notion because it was a great way for me to keep all of those detailed development notes together along with my tasks. And that's a trickier problem to solve than it sounds like on the face of things. So, but yeah, it's really about, interfacing with other people and at what level.
Yeah. And I've also found that, while I have all my work projects in Notion, my workplace, do use other project management tools. I'll sort of share sort of how I get around that. I still sort of use Notion, but it can still be used even though you've got other project management tools, and I've still found it useful, even though it's an extra system. But yeah. Great. So what do I have next? So yeah, I'll just sort of show you how I sort of manage projects then. On my home page, I have a project section. Okay, so this just shows all my current active projects. Now you can see actually this is in a database. Yeah, a database called Inbox, and the reason why is that I kind of use it for this one database for tasks, projects, notes, and everything, nearly everything. So if we have a look, when I've sort of go into the drop down, I've got lots of different types of templates here, depending on what sort of project it is. And I'm going to click on new project shared. There'll be a bit of loading, and how I sort of filter these tables is through the type property. So in the type, you've got all sorts of these types of information or types of pages. And the reason why I use an all-in-one database rather than separate databases is I find that it helps me capture things really quickly. Yeah. So whenever I want to capture a task, a project, well, I don't even know what it is. If it's just sort of a note, I can just quickly click new page and it goes into my inbox. Or on my home page, I also have this new kind of button. It's actually a gallery view with a filter of nothing. And here, if I just click new, that's it. I can just decide what type of page that I want. Yeah. So that's why I have an all-in-one database. And also, the other thing I like about the all-in-one sort of database is I can quickly sort of tag pages to relate them to each other without having sort of lots and lots of properties here. So actually, I've only got a few things in my property list. But if I sort of create this new project, I can bring in sort of related tasks and related pages. And this project can also be tagged, for example, with a life area or any other page. So If it's health and fitness project, I can tag it against any other page that's also in the inbox database. So that's why I use an all-in-one database, and that is part of my project database. So I created this one by accident. If I go projects, this is filtered. Yeah, this is a filter for type equals project. Status is not completed. Sandra, do you generally use an all-in-one database, or do you sort of have in your sort of Notion, it's kind of a number of different databases to manage different things?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix. So I definitely have a master task database, and I try and filter everything into that. But the next level up, I do split into categories. So I have different databases for projects, courses that I'm taking. Client work is a separate table, and I just made a new one recently, and now I'm drawing a blank on what it was. But basically, it's like actions is where everything gets like the actual, what's the next step? What's the literal next thing I need to do? All goes in actions. But then from there, like one level up in the hierarchy, I do put a little more categorization. And we were just talking in Notion Mastery earlier today, the pros and cons of that. That means that, and I'll demo this when I'm showing my screen, there are some places where I end up having like 4 or 5 columns just to see what that action relates to. And another way of doing that would be to just basically have everything in a single projects database, kind of like what you're talking here, with a select field that would indicate whether it was a course, a client project, an internal project, or something else. So, I think the way you organize that kind of stuff, the bottom line is it needs to work for your brain. So if it makes sense for you and you're not having friction in how you're looking at the data or finding the information, then I would stick with, people should stick with what they've got. I think when you find yourself going to a particular place and being frustrated by the number of columns you've got or the complex needs of the filtering that you're having to do, that's when it's time to like kind of compare and contrast what the options might be in terms of master tables versus separate ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose there's not one correct way. It's partly individual preferences, partly depends on the types of tasks and projects and how complex you need everything. I mean, another reason sort of I use sort of the all-in-one approach is because I kind of do follow the getting things done methodology. So this is a productivity methodology, and that's quite popular, designed by David Allen, where it says, just the first thing you should do is capture everything, get it out of your head, and get it out of head as quickly as possible. And things like let's say I'm here and I'm going on a website, and there's a website that I want to save in Notion. I have the Notion web clipper, and usually, let's see what's happening here. It's acting a bit slow. Usually what I can do is I can assign it by default, as you can see here, into my inbox. So my process would be saving this, and then after I save it, I could click on open in Notion, and then it's not too much trouble just to tag it however I like it. So here I've got type. Is it a project? Nope. Is it a channel? Is it a website? I'm going to mark it as website and tag it with any other page. So that's another reason why I kind of like the all-in-one approach.
Yeah, I do something similar in a sense. I have a database called Idea Garden where I stick things that I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to take action on them yet. They tend to be a little more project oriented over just like articles or links to things. Those I tend to put either in a library or a knowledge hub of some sort. But yeah, I think having a place that you can throw things into, one of the things that David Allen talks about is capturing is the first step, but then clarifying and organizing is the second step. So I'm being clear that a lot of times when I see people getting overwhelmed and frustrated in Notion, it's because they're trying to do all like 3 or 4 or 5 steps all at once. They're trying to capture it, clarify it, organize it, and then delegate it or plan when they're going to do it. And in fact, it ends up being a little easier if you think of steps as being separate aspects of your planning system.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, at times it is just write a note or capture the website and not bother tagging. But this does sort of end up on my, you know, kind of to-do list in order to sort of organize later. Let's just have a look at some example projects I have. So here's one. This is a course that I am collaborating with one other person. So here you can see my work colleague Richard is a shared person on this workspace, and this is just generally the latest version of how I design things. I've got project pages where we can have sort of share any sort of key resources, and then here I just have sort of a simple database with regards to course content, which is sort of the lectures for this course that we're designing and the status of them and who's actually sort of responsible for it. So when I did this project, it's a shared project, and you know, ideally I wouldn't want Richard to see sort of all of this because it's not sort of relevant to him. Other than that, actually, I didn't have any sort of private pages that I was sort of worried about him seeing. So this sort of kind of worked well, apart from that bit up there, in that, you know, I'm sharing sort of everything with him, and you know, I don't. This is a project in my inbox database. But recently, I designed a new template, which I'll also share in my inbox for a shared project, and we'll have a look at that. So here I'm in the inbox, new, and I'm going to click on new project shared. Now this takes a while to load because sometimes there's a lot of things going on. Anything I click on the home page button, it kind of defaults to a task, just in case I don't remember dealing with it. Okay, so this is my template, and it's a bit similar to my travel plan template I showed, but it's got a few more things. So here in the private project pages, you can see actually this is a linked database to my inbox where I'm sort of keeping all my pages. But the filter is it's tagged with this particular project. Okay. And here, these project pages are what I'm going to share with a team. Because in the project team page, this is a very similar page, but it does not include my private pages or my private tasks. Okay, so here in project pages, they can use it, share links, notes, and emails, etc. And I've got a few templates as well. So for example, a meeting. So if you want us to do a project meeting, you can see it's still loading. I have a template. And what it will show is it will show an agenda, and it will show, here we go, space for minutes, space for project logs, and space for team tasks. Okay, so that's a really quick way to sort out a meeting agenda, and a few more templates. And these could be sort of unique to how you work in your organization. With project files, I usually kind of sort of just use them for key files to SharePoint or to sort of their website. And, you know, if we have it as a list view, what I like is that, you know, once I put a project page, oh, I don't have the property of the URL displayed, you know, we can just sort of click there and it will take you to that external website. And that's what I use a lot sort of when I'm working with external systems. Then we have project deliverables. So this is where you put what you want to achieve with regards to the project. So there could be a number of them there. We've got project tasks. So these could be designed to be delegated to different people. With the deliverables, of course, we can have the functionality of a timeline as well. I'll show you a populated project in a bit. And project logs. So I have project logs where any decisions, assumptions, change requests, etc., risks are kept here in the central place. So anything we put here can be shared with the team. And when I'm back onto my personal portal, that displays here in the project log as well. So I would be working on this page because I'd have some private project pages and also my tasks related to the project. But the team, I would use this page, I would share that with them, as well as any other sort of databases here. So project pages, project deliverables, project tasks, and project logs. Okay. And just to show you how it can be tailored for sort of your organization a little bit, I've got sort of a new type of project. If I go to my homepage again and I click on new, I work on system implementations. So I'm going to click on Salesforce Project. Is a type of project that I work with. It's a bit like similar to, you know, designing a website with a customer. So, you know, I'd work with the customer and maybe sort of collaborate with them. But, you know, your organization might have certain processes with which to follow, such as a discovery meeting, statement of work. I have a folder here for project meetings. So all of this I automatically created in my project template. So, you know, I can add a new meeting, and then we've already, that will sort of create a page where it will have sort of the meeting template that you have seen before. Here we go. Yeah. And everything will be in this new meeting folder. So let's go back to the project I created. So here we've got, you know, already pages created from the template. In fact, we've even got deliverables already pre-created because most of the projects that I work with have a requirements gathering deliverable, a system design deliverable, but you can make sort of further changes here. And here as well in your project pages, you can have different templates. So I've shown most of them, but if I can show you this one, Salesforce deployment, what this one does is, you know, specific to what I have to do when I do a deployment, which is kind of a useful checklist, yeah, to make sure that I've covered everything that I am meant to. So yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. Any thoughts, Sandra?
I mean, I think this looks great. I love how it's so integrated together, right? And yeah,
it's still work in progress as well. You know,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you can spend a lot of time playing with these things, but it's sort of really sort of definitely helped with, you know, finding things, you know, finding information quickly is what I found. Because even if you use sort of an external system, let's say, you know, I still receive, you know, Microsoft Teams messages, emails, where it's important information about a project. And with this, I feel I can store it somewhere and it's not going to get lost in my Microsoft Outlook emails. Yeah. So, you know, if I've got an email here, I would just sort of copy and paste it into a project note.
Yeah.
If I received an important file, I would either link to it if it was, let's say, on SharePoint or in the cloud, or I would be able to upload it within sort of Salesforce, within Notion. I said Salesforce because in this Salesforce course that I'm developing with my friend, I mean, with these course lectures, for example, if I click on this one and have a look, I've actually uploaded the physical file of the video that I recorded so that he can review it. So, you know, Notion's great with embedding media. This is not a YouTube embed. It's actually a direct file embed. It's created a video and you can have sort of related notes. And I think it's a really good sort of a training resource and tool as well, for potentially your customers, and anyone sort of you work with.
Mm-hmm.
So what else is there? Anything else I haven't covered?
I really like the categories too. I have to say, like, my style of note taking is a little bit more, well, you guys will see it when I demo, but basically, with the level of kind of conversation that happens in my projects, I just find it easier to have basically one page of development notes that I tag with the date and who is a part of the conversation, and we just kind of keep it rolling, and I like add new content to the top and add new content to the top. But having, like, I also put a lot of effort into training my clients to not email me things, to like put it in Notion. I give them enough access so that they can just throw things in there, or whatever system we're using, so that I'm not trying to manage a project out of my inbox.
Yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
So let me actually share the template with people in the group. So I'm just going to go to my website, and I've just recently put them up here on templates. So these are free. That's the project portal and travel plan. That will take you straight to Notion, where you can duplicate the template. The only one that I sell is this one, which is kind of the all-in-one system that you saw on my homepage. And that one comes with sort of the course that I had developed as well. So just showing that in the chat. Yeah, it's free, but yeah, that's the beauty of Notion. People are doing it in different ways, and it's that's sort of made possible. And I don't know, Sandra, it seems to me, I don't know what other sort of project management software you can be that sort of flexible, where it's easy to have a private space as well as spaces, because things like I've looked at things like Trello, Asana. It is very good at collaboration and having one space for everything in your project. But what if you want a private place to put, as you say, your development notes? I don't think those software tools offer that, do they?
No.
I'm aware of any that do, but this kind of offers both.
Yeah,
that's why I was thinking about this meetup. Yeah,
the main thing that got me to go all in on Notion is the ability to keep notes and super detailed tasks together, right? Because I used OneNote for years before, and it does a good job of the notes. And if you're using Microsoft Office products anyway, it was like, I could be typing away in a meeting, putting tasks together, and then the meeting ends and it's one click of a button and it will like email the notes to the client. And they loved that feeling of like being in the loop and knowing exactly what the next steps were. But in terms of actually like sorting and filtering those tasks, especially when there's lots of them, Outlook and OneNote and that whole system just doesn't handle that the way Notion can. So
yeah.
And I think Asana does the top-down version, and Trello is great if you think sort of more like linearly, like, hey, we're going to do this step, and we have a flow. But Notion has the combo. I don't know. The app that I was using before Notion, after OneNote, my sort of interim solution, was actually Monday.com, which I have a lot of positive things to say about in terms of collaboration. It was great, but it still didn't do notes and tasks together. So, right, that ended up being the key thing for me in my workflow in deciding to go with Notion.
And I believe sort of what you see here, you can actually get in the free edition. Yeah. It's only when you sort of expand it to sharing it with many, many different people. And you can always, in some cases, like with the travel plan, where it's not too sensitive, just create a public link as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's using it for work should pony up and pay for the pro plan, because then you get some version history. That way, if you accidentally drag something or whatever, you can get back to a prior version, which I've had clients accidentally move things. It wasn't even me. So it was nice to be able to go back and get that version history. And then you can also invite more people. So depending on your bandwidth, the number of projects you're doing, the number of clients you've got, you're going to want that personal pro plan so that you can invite more people as guests if you want to collaborate in your space.
So the version history is one of the sort of the key things, I guess, because
from my perspective,
delete and move things around.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing I wanted to bring up is, it says I've got, private project pages and team project pages. I guess, if you had sort of a company task or project database, it wouldn't sort of completely be private. It'd be private within your internal team, and perhaps this would be customer project pages. So you could actually, adapt this kind of model for a business who has collaboration projects with a customer. Whereas here in this scenario, I'm mainly doing sort of private, which is just myself, and that's why there's this inbox linked database with a team of people.
The way my language is very similar. I say anything that's client facing usually says client on it, and anything that's for us says team. So, and I can show you how I do that.
And it's hard to see unless remember to go to the share to the share link as well. Finally,
it really does help to name things in a consistent way. So
it takes a while to think of the best name for everything. I find these databases. Should I do deliverables? Should I do milestones? But you can adapt that to what you feel comfortable with. And I guess there's a little bit of a newer functionality is the timeline. So I wonder if you use that. It's not the best timeline tool, I would say, out of everything, but it's nice that it's there. And I guess what I found it was sort of quite easy to quickly sort of reorder things. Do you use this at all, Sandra?
Yeah, I do a little bit. It depends on the complexity of the project and the duration in some sense. So if I were to compare it to like how I used to use like Monday.com, they have a pretty good Gantt chart that's pretty fluid. I would do it. One of the things you could do there is, because they naturally group sections, you could do a timeline view that would show phases, project phases, and hide sort of the micro level tasks or like the day-to-day actions. You could see like the bigger. So if you've got a year-long project where phases are taking several months to complete, that's a very different thing than having a 12-week project where there's 2 phases, maybe there's 3, but you're really operating at a more weekly level. So I think project duration, the number of people on the team, how detailed the tasks are getting, all of that play into how you would want to set up your timeline view to make it the most effective. And I think being smart about what you're displaying on the left in the table versus what you put on the right in the timeline view itself, can really make a difference. Exactly. So you can turn things on and off in different places. And when it first came out, it wasn't clicking. And then all of a sudden I started playing with where I turned what on and off. And I was like, oh, so in some of we can poke around in my system and see if I still have a version of this. But sometimes I actually have a second name. So it's almost like a short name or an abbreviated name that I use on the right-hand side with the item, and then like a longer descriptive name that maybe I wrap on the left, or vice versa. If each task is really long and you have the space horizontally to like spell out a whole, detailed piece, then you could put the name on the right and the like a short abbreviation on the left to like tidy up that table portion of the view. So
it can look a bit messy sometimes. About the key limitation I feel for this is the grouping, where you do have a really sort of large project, as you mentioned. So let's say there's several things from work package 1. I could put maybe another sort of field there, but then you don't get that sort of grouped Gantt chart bar, do you?
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not quite the same. It's like the other thing I was playing around with a client the other day as we were looking at how you format your dates, or how you format, let me say this differently, how you format your roll-ups that are dates impacts how it displays on timeline and calendar differently. So that's another thing. Like the way the Notion date field works, the start and the end dates have actually, like, inside of, if you do a date range in one property, that is not the same as having two different fields that are start and end. And so while it might feel a little redundant, in some cases it's better to have more fields that spread that out, because you just, and like having one roll-up format does better if you do like the latest date at the calendar, and then the date range works better on timeline because you can see the full span. So you might have, from, say you're rolling up from tasks to projects and getting a sense of things, you may have two different date fields that are both roll-ups going to the same field, but you calculate it differently because it will impact the displays you can do in terms of timeline versus calendar.
Yeah, and on this timeline, yeah, we can, have several date fields. So I think what I've done by default here is this is only being based, as you can see, on the start date, isn't it? With regards to what's being shown on the timeline, but you can have a separate start date and due date bar. I forget how to do that actually.
I think it's if you go into timeline by.
That's the one. So you can see we got start dates ticked, but if I do use separate start and end dates, we can say that that's a start date and that's a due date. And now you can see the bars have changed. And now when I extend this, the due date updates.
That's pretty fluid there too, to like switch it. I hadn't actually done that live, so that's cool. Good to know that works. I like it.
Great. So yeah, feel free to copy my template, shared the website and the link. I'm going to pass over to Sandra now. And yeah, really sort of excited to hear sort of her experience on the consultancy side. So let me try and unshare my screen. And if you've got anything to share, hopefully you're okay as well, Sandra. Great. Over to you.
All right, let's get this going here. All right, so like minimize this. Can you guys see my Notion screen?
I think I've added it to the stream now, and that should be showing now.
Okay. Ooh. All right. I'm going to keep that minimized while we're doing this. That's amazing. All right. So just let me know if you can't see what I'm talking about, or if the audio doesn't match up, because I'm not seeing what you guys are seeing. So I thought I would start. This is actually sort of the most complicated version, but I can back this out. So if this feels busy, don't stress, because this is going to get easier as we move along. So this is one of my more complicated corporate projects that I managed in here in Notion, and it's a mix of different things. So I'll do my best to walk through this in like a linear order. So at the top here, you see I've got quite a lot of properties in there, which help me track all kinds of details about the project. And so I just wanted to show real quickly the level of information that was in there, but I use tags in a lot of cases to give me an idea of what the types of information they want to track, where is their project heading, just all kinds of details go into this particular page. I have this sort of quick note section, which is it's like my backup. It's like my scratch pad, which I think is really important. I do this a lot. And some people would say, oh, you want to put everything in your action database or everything in a database of some sort. And I actually find that to not be true for me. I find it a little easier to give myself some flexibility on that front, and just write things down where I am as I'm doing things. And then sometimes they do get added to a task database, sometimes they don't. The second thing I do is I often have, you can see here, this sort of section of other tables. And so for my corporate clients, I tend to make lots of subtables, and I put them all on the one page so that way it's all self-contained. And what that allows me to do that is this page, this DV client page, I could share this whole thing with anybody I want, and they would get access to all of these subtables. So that's really important when we're talking about wanting to make sure somebody, like say you have a new person coming into your project and you want them to make sure, you want to make sure they have access to everything. If you've nested some of your tables related to that project elsewhere, then you would have to find all of them and share all of them. Whereas by doing it this way, by having a separate notes database, separate databases to track code tables and changelog and so on and so forth, it's one click to share everything, and then they're kind of in the loop, so to speak. The next piece of the puzzle is, I think for me, really kind of differentiating between the like macro level actions and the micro level actions. So what I mean by that is I don't, because of the quantity of development actions, like that, let's just pop in here and see what's in here. So this is like a pretty small project, and there's only 20 records here. It's a little tidier and easier to kind of grok in the beginning. But I've had projects where development tasks were like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tasks. If I were to put all of that in my task database, my master actions database, or whatever you want to call it, that would be totally overwhelming. And I wouldn't have no idea what I needed to do from one moment to the next that's actually like on my business as opposed to for a client. And so I differentiate a little bit between the like teeny tiny little steps. And I think this has to do with like how detailed are your projects. If your projects are super detailed, having a separate task database inside the project can be really valuable. And that allows me to track all of this kind of minutia, if you will, and categorizing it by, where in their system am I working on it? And then you'll see up here in the like open section, it's in this open filter of my actions database. This is like a reminder to like, hey, go into Slack and get those values they messaged you the other day and make sure they're updated. It's like more bigger picture things. When I go in there to do this task, I'm going to do like 5 or 10 other things that are in here probably. So this is really more about me thinking in terms of my focus blocks and saying like, okay, I'm going to focus on this project, this client for a certain amount of time, maybe 90 minutes, maybe 3 hours, depends on complexity and what I have available. I'm going to kind of use this actions database, my master actions database, to tell me what to focus on, but I'm going to use this to kind of check and say like, okay, what is my actual next step? Does that make sense? How I'm kind of splitting those two things up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit similar, I think, to how I've done it with deliverables.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of split in 3, deliverables, team tasks, and inbox, which is my individual little bitsy tasks.
Right.
And I guess it's just sort of the naming convention. But yeah, I think both of us do distinguish that. It can't just be one database for everything, because you got your higher level, bigger picture things on your project, and then you've got all those little things you've got to remember as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I do some of the other sort of hacks, if you will, that I have for myself is I'm a big fan of checkboxes. So sometimes rather than having a single status field or a tag field, I just find this to be a little simpler. And so these are all different areas of their system that need updating, and some of them were partially updated, but I still had questions. So it was just easier, rather than trying to put all of that in a status field with multiple tags, to just mark these off, and so they can be in multiple states at one time. And this table right here is one that exists up above. And if I scroll up a little bit, so this is this code table. So originally it only existed on this page, which I use for myself and with my team internally. I don't give the client access to all of this because, as you can see, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of detail. And so eventually, as the project went on, there became more and more nuances to the code tables that we were setting up, and I did need them to look at them. So what I did was I went into their client portal, and I just made a view of that table, and that table is shared with them. So they can see like, hey, here's the status of the tasks that we're working on. Here are the code tables. And oftentimes the view that I'll have filtered in here. So like, let's say with this one. So this one is filtered to questions is checked. So by default, what they're seeing is the ones I need them to look at, right? And then that allows them to come in and kind of make quick assessment of where they need to tag things and put information, and I can come back behind them and answer questions and go back and forth. And to like even dig in one more level, I will have sometimes like little reminders for myself here, and or we'll go back and forth. What I love about managing multiple levels of a project in a table is that you can have comments that are particular to just this topic. And so that's been really useful in terms of collaborating. And you can see this portal is really simple. I have, other portals for other clients that are more, I almost want to say they're just like more polished. They're more designed to make the client feel at home, but they're less, not functional. They're just less in the weeds is probably the best way to say it. So some clients need a more detailed, in the weeds, we're getting things done type of portal. And some clients need the like, here's a link to book a call, and here are the video tutorials I gave you, and here are some helpful files. And it's a much more sort of curated, almost like resource database that you're giving them. And I make a case-by-case decision who needs what as far as that goes.
Yeah, and it's only with Notion I feel that you can really sort of quickly create a really customized portal.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, how easy it is. Like say I wanted to, and the other thing is that in Notion, you can embed Calendly links. I just switched over to SavvyCal myself, and I haven't tested to see if I can embed that yet. So I suppose we could try and see what it looks like.
I've seen this myself, so yeah.
Yeah, why not, right? See if it works. I don't know. Look at that. There you go. So I do something like that along with some videos for them, and, links to a couple files. And then like, if this was in their portal, right, then it would be so
with you directly then, yeah?
Yeah, it would be so easy for them to like pop in and like overlay their calendar or see what sessions they have available or whatever. So I think thinking about how do you interact with your clients in terms of project management and client portals or portals in general, it's like, think about it from their perspective. What do they most want to know and need to be able to get to quickly? And that's the stuff we put on the portal at the top to make it easiest for them. Because I always find, like, as I've been doing client service and database design for a long time now, and it still never fails that I am just always more in the weeds and the nuances than the client is, because that's my job, and that's okay. And it's easy to forget too when we're designing a portal, and sometimes we think, we're going to give them all the information, it's going to be amazing. And like with these, you can be really complex in Notion. And I think in some cases for portals, it doesn't serve us, because Notion it's very fluid and very easy to use once you've gotten the technical basics. But if somebody doesn't have the mechanics yet, you're asking them to think about whatever it is you're working on with them and other things, and how to use Notion at the same time. And that's a lot for to process all at once, I think.
Yeah, and have you found sort of quite a few clients struggle with the learning curve when you sort of provide them with a portal? Although, you know, as you can say, we can make very simple portals.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of a more simple portal. So if I were to go into my client work table here, actually, I think it's right down here. Let's take a look at Sam's. So sometimes what I do is I will have, so on my end, this is what I can like come in here and define what success for Sam would look like, if I can get all the S's out, what the challenges of that project might be, what my strategy is. This is behind the scenes for me. She doesn't see this, although she'll probably look up this YouTube channel later. And I have lots of different things in here. So I had my VA go into the contract and grab the actual text of the project and put it in here. And the payment plan, this is like under here, a bunch of checkboxes where it's just like my way of double checking, like, oh, did they make all their, you know, payment plan installments, right? What else? So this right here is actually a global block. And so I set this up so that if I update it here, it updates for her also. So you can see the portal itself, the piece that she sees is here. And you can see how uber simple this is, right? It's like, if she wants to double check what we agreed to, it's right here. If she needs to get to her call schedule, it's right here. And you know, if there's actually a task that we're managing for some reason on my side, we put it here. And then like I was helping her do a daily journal in Notion the other day. We recorded it as a you know, a Zoom meeting. And then I had my VA embed the video snippet in here. So if she needs to get back to that tutorial, she can. And so it's just uber simple. This could almost be a set of toggles as opposed to embedded pages. It like really would work just as well. I think the less we ask them to think through, the better, really, in terms of it. So this is how I approach a super simple client portal. It's really just an independent page that is embedded in their client work record. So another element of that is basically having, you know, templates. So in here, I have different types of templates. So if I have a new business coaching client, for example, this stuff is all filled out. And so here, this is all blank, right? There's nothing in here. And as, you know, I could probably come in here because we just like amended our contracts and standardized some things. So I could probably come in here and like make some placeholders for the way this would look, assuming they sign the standard package that we have. But it just means that it's like one click, it's all here. All my VA has to do is come in and pop in the person's name and we're off to the races. It's that simple. So I think, you know, being mindful about where are you plugging in your templates and how are you using global blocks to make things easier can be a really powerful way of looking at this. Another thought on the global blocks before I forget, and then I can like take some questions, is when
actually, yeah, if you could explain the sort of global as an intro, because actually it's not a feature I've used.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can walk us through it. So the idea with a global block is that wherever you set it, it shows up everywhere in Notion the same way, basically. So I'll show you where I actually put them is because it is a verbatim duplicate. Are instances where it doesn't make sense to use them because you're going to see, like say you have, I don't know, standard notes that you give a client at the start of every project. But then as soon as the project starts, you're amending that notes document. That's not something you would want as a global block unless you start it that way just to get it between templates and like where you manage your you know, documentation and workflow versus where you actually execute your projects. Those could be separate places and you may want global blocks between them to make your life easier, but then being mindful of like, okay, is this something I want to be verbatim the same everywhere? Because if it's not, probably need to pull it out of the global block and use it a little differently. So to like illustrate what I'm saying there, we want to go into systems and workflow here. And I actually have a table called global blocks right here. So it's a couple of different things. Let's open it up. And so this is the one, this is a more complicated version. Let me see if there's a simpler one that we could use. Yeah, this is probably okay. All right, so actually, forgive my indecision. I think this is probably easier to think about. So say I have this morning check-in. These are like questions I ask myself in the morning when I'm getting my day going to keep myself on track, right? I want this to read in my daily journal, for example. What I can do is copy this link here, the link, and I'm going to come over here into this code block, and I'm going to paste it. And then what you do to make the global block is you just delete everything between the SO slash and the pound sign or the hashtag. So you just delete all of that. And that becomes a reference to the actual block, this, as opposed to the page. And so then what I can do is I can copy this. And the reason I use these code blocks is because it gives you quick access to copy. And then I can go anywhere in my system and put that block. So let's just say I go to my headquarters page and I come down here and I paste it in, and you get the same link that you would like if you were making a link to view. And I'm just going to do link to page, and here it is.
Right? So if you change it there, it will change the global block itself.
You got it, right? So if I'm like excited about YouTube streaming today, right? And then I go back a page and we go into the daily journal. And so now that's going to show up here and everywhere else in my system that I have that block, right?
Yeah. So if you did share with a client, they would be able to change it as well.
You got it. Yeah. So there's pros and cons to it, right? Like it has a lot of value, and it's like when you think about something always being verbatim, it really is a different level of consistency than what we think of when we're like duplicating things. There's another one, the one I was going to show you guys, which I thought it was in that table, but it's not. So I'll just show you where it exists, where it lives. So in here, I have this little block right here. And this is a global block. It's hiding somewhere in my Notion. And so usually what I do is inside of a global block, I will put a link to where to go to find the original, so that way I can get the link for it and just kind of know that if I wanted to, like, you know, circle back, I can call that together. So what this is it's a process global block. It's like a list of steps I want my assistant to follow if and when I hire, like, or you know, sign a new coaching client, right? So she comes in, I gave her an example of a really clean existing item, and then all the steps: apply the template, complete the fields, the contract, put them in Google Drive, how to save it, where to put the contract in Notion, all of these steps, and then how to create the client portal. And then the way we do documentation like this, the next time she does it, if she follows this and she realizes this is out of date, she updates it when she's doing it so that it always stays current. And the beauty of having this here,
boxes, don't you? So that doesn't update the global block, because is that a duplicate of the global box, or the check boxes you have?
Yeah. So the check boxes are more like so that she's thinking of them as tasks. If she wanted to click and drag them out. So another way I do global blocks, I'll show you another version of this, is in my daily journal. So if I come into, I think I already set Thursday up. Did I set today up? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. So if I were to come in here and say, I'm going to set up a new day today. What I do, this is a global block, this new day, right? And inside of it is a template button. And inside the template button is all of those toggles that you saw in that that other page, that template. So I'll show you. I'm going to jump back so that we can connect dots here. If I go into this and we go into global blocks, just kind of point this out so we're seeing it. So all of these toggles right here, these toggles right here are actually inside this template button here. And that's what we're seeing when we go to jump back. There we go. Jump back to here. So the way, and I tried doing this like nested toggles and it did not work. So it was interesting to see that it was better to have lots of toggles inside of the template button and the template button inside of a toggle. That was a better way of going about it. One of the reasons I put global blocks inside of toggles to begin with is because it allows me to color it, right? So like I'm queen dark mode. I do everything in dark mode, but if this were in light mode, it would be even more obvious that this is a block. It's all one section, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm starting my new day, I'm getting ready to do my journaling. I click on this button and it duplicates all the things that I'm doing. So I can pull my Oracle card. I can check my routines. I can go through, my questions. These are the questions we just talked about. Now, if I were to open this and start editing right here, it would appear everywhere in my system, everywhere this new day appeared. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to jump back one more time. We're going to go here. We're going to open this up again, and you can see it changed, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to favorite it just to kind of connect dots here and make it easier to jump back and forth. And all right, so my process is once I click the template button and I have the duplicate, then I just drag these out. Let's drag it all the way out. There we go. So now they're outside of that toggle. You can see they don't have the purple background anymore. And if I jump back to the daily or the global blocks daily journal page, you can see that this is back to the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, so it's no longer part of the global block.
Yep, you got it. So then from there, I can just, open this up, got my routines today, and fill this out, go through my questions, and I'm off to the races. And even better, when I first started doing this, sometimes I would go into my my actions table, and I would be like, I don't like the way this is filtering, or I want to show other columns and I want that to be consistent. Well, all I have to do to change it is pop up here into actions, right? And say, I don't really need to see hours. I'm not filling that out at this level. This is enough. And so now I've changed it. So when I go in tomorrow and click on that button, that hours column won't be there. So it just gives you a way of simplifying and being consistent while still having flexibility.
Yeah, thank you. I think of might have a potential play around and think of a few use cases for that. So definitely.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in your Notion. I'm very impressed. So I find it hard, even me, sort of trying to sort of keep it updated all the time. But you did say you have help from a virtual assistant, do you, to particular updates of the project stuff?
Yeah, she does more. It's funny you say that, because I was just having the thought today that I should have her do some of my daily journal setup just to take the load off, partly because I have this repetitive stress injury that's bugging me. But for the most part, I actually find it really helpful to go in and do this myself. And I have her doing more admin related things like proofreading and content creation. And so I'm very careful about what is useful. I think when we're thinking about our Notion workflow, there are things we do in Notion because there's no API that we wouldn't have to do manually in a lot of other systems. And I think that's actually a benefit, because you get to curate what you're doing, what you're looking at, where you're seeing it, when you're seeing it, and in Notion. And in other systems, you just wouldn't be invited to do that. It wouldn't matter. It would either be automatically pushed in from your email or your calendar or whatever. And so because of the repetitive stress injury, I was kind of taking it easy on like doing as much clicking and updating this week. And I have not had as good of a sense of like where I am in my day. So I think it's a very personal decision about how much information you want to have on a given page in Notion. And, how it goes sort of like, we're talking about portals. How much information do you want to display there? It's like being clear about when you're zooming in and zooming out, and setting up your pages to help you see that.
Yeah. Now you talked about API, which is obviously an integration with other systems, which may be coming at some point. When it sort of does come, is there something in particular that you're going to sort of start exploring quickly? I mean, I think for me, it will be sort of maybe the email integration, to be honest. What about yourself, Sandra?
Yeah, I think email integration would be, honestly, it would be like the last thing I would do, because I think it would be so easy to just dump things in email. And like, yeah, it's nice to be able to have that context. But I also, I switched to hey.com email for work in the last couple of months. Both Marie and I switched. So it's a very different way of managing email than Gmail or Outlook. And it really invites some like kind of ruthlessness, if you will, about not dilly-dallying and not writing these long and necessary responses. And my email process has gotten really clean. And so sometimes if there's something really critical, I'll take a screenshot. I use Snagit for screen capture. And so it's really fast, couple of, quick commands on the keyboard, and pop that in as reference. But I tried to not manage my work out of my email. So where I'm interested is more in forms. So like having type form or something like that, where I could have a contact form on my website and have it populate into Notion, or a feedback form after an event and have that populate into Notion. That interests me, like leveraging it for the database features interests me a little more than email. But
yeah, and I think there's a few already sort of embedded form solutions that kind of work with Notion, but there's not sort of true integration, is it? I think there's a few out there. I forgot, there's one beginning with S. I forget the name of that, but I think if it's sort of integrated with some of the bigger names, I use a lot of sort of form assembly for integration with Salesforce, where there's a lot you can do with options on what data goes in and validations. See how that can become a really powerful tool.
Yeah, I was just going to say Chili Pepper I think it's .io, if I remember correctly. They do one, and I played with it a little bit. It seemed to work pretty well for me, but it's also limited. It's like 6 fields or something like that. So it depends on your use case and what you're trying to do with it. But it was well done from what I experienced.
Okay. Anything else you want to share with your sort of experience, particularly with lots of the larger projects?
Yeah. So. I mean, I think, the key, I think actually what I'd like to share is more like where all of this fits into the bigger ecosystem of my Notion, because it's one thing to see the weeds of, okay, I have a daily journal and, how to do a global block or all of that. But like, what's the hierarchy here? Because I think that really helps people understand how you're using Notion. So I think I run through that a little bit. And then if you want me to show you a little more, we can try that. So I have this home base page, which is new for me, and I'm still figuring out exactly what I want here. But the idea is it's a launching off place. And it's not quite at a place where I'm finding I come here as often, although it's getting there. So what I want it to be is like the things that are sort of buried in the system, but that I use often would link here. This is a link to the functions database, which I can show you in a second. And I think the next piece that's going to go on this page is like a timeline view of projects above the content calendar that I'm playing with, so that it's like I could, like, this is like literally home base. I could get to anything in the workspace from here. From there, I have this team page, which, you know, you could see, like, so I have key results here. I was kind of playing with this idea of like, do I want key results or do I want a project table here? I haven't really, you know, I'm still playing with those two, but this is definitely team home. So we have the team notebook here. We have team members. This is where Megan and I have our quirky little thing where we go back and forth about like how we're feeling, what we're watching on TV, just like a way to stay connected on stuff that isn't always work and whatever. And then from my headquarters is really where I launch most of the time. And so you can see I have that same global block here that gets me into all the functions of the business and different areas that I work in, kind of different. This is sort of like my dashboards, if you will. So one in particular that I like a lot is the capture dashboards. We were talking about this a little bit. It's like, you know, when we are gathering information, where do we put it, right? And I have all of, I actually don't know if this is all at this point, but it's most of the tables that I add things to on a regular basis are all here under toggles, and part they're filtered down so that they show stuff created today. So that way, if I add something and then I'm like, wait, did I put it in? I can't remember. It's really easy for me to come in and I can just this. And I've been toying with the idea of setting up a very similar to this, where it's like just the record tables, same idea, just that shows me records that are missing information. You know, like, do my tasks have, you know, day and all of that assigned? So just kind of thinking in terms of how am I processing my information? We looked at the daily page that had the journal on it. The today page is also essentially like a focus page. So I have, this is a global block, Minesweep. This is like sort of like a scratch pad that I use. My calendar items, and, you know, what's going on this week. So my method for doing task management is I'm breaking all my own rules, usually 3 by day, 3, that's it. And so it's been a little week. So then I like switch this to focus. If I have, you know, I want to see the next bigger picture. And then if I want to do the detailed view, this is where I have, and I think we started talking about this a little bit too, where it's like, you know, how am I splitting up all of my actions? And so they're coming from key results, projects, and courses right now. And then I track like what week am I planning to do it? What's the priority? I have an estimate for how long it's going to take me, and then a formula that does the Pomodoro calculation, so I can like think in terms of time, but it gives me a visual indicator of what that really means. And what else is in here? So I have this right here, which is could be a global block. I don't think it is. I think this might be the only place where it exists right now. But this actually links to, you can see the same name but different icon. This actually goes to Marie's space because I'm in another space. I do a lot of work over there. So I have a headquarters over there, and I can jump between them. And I actually just recently pulled in I think I pulled in their task database. Let me see if I can scroll down past all this. So yeah, this is the task for mastery, right? And so and then this project that I was working on recently, it also showed up here. And so this ended up being quite a long page depending on what's going on. But it's meant to be action oriented, like biased towards action. And I have this week page, which is kind of cool and I like, although I'll say like I've been on it often, the dailies, how I do the daily page. Usually what this, like you can see I haven't updated it in 2 weeks. Some of that might be the repetitive stress injury, like a lot of things off in the last weeks, but otherwise usually what I do is I come in and I do it this week, last week kind of thing. And I will also, you can see that the difference. So on the this week, it's showing me like a summary, but on the allegedly last week, it's actually showing me a list of what was on my calendar. And I do that because on Fridays, one of the cool things about the Notion Mastery ecosystem, one of the things I'm doing there is a weekly review, kind of getting things done style. Every Friday, twice a day, we're meeting to do it like a check-in of our system. What's working, what's not, how are you going to improve it, that kind of thing. So I say that this is kind of a more ground level way of thinking about how you manage projects and portals. Only matters if you've got the core structure of how you're operating day to day. These pages that I just showed are the essential blocks of my workflow. And without them, the more advanced stuff that I showed in the beginning, where it's like lots of tables to manage a complicated project, that would not have the power it does if I didn't have a place to land every day and say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is the next thing on my agenda or my focus.
Absolutely, because even sort of my setup, as you saw, is a little bit more simpler. But I thought it's sort of important to say how I organize generally everything else with regards to my tasks and personal projects, and how sort of that links with projects and when you sort of create the portals. Wow. Mind blown, I'm sure. Hopefully a lot of good stuff there.
I know. I wanted to read the comments for a second because I couldn't see you guys while I was, sharing.
I think there was a lot going on.
Oh, good. So there's like, I see some Notion Mastery friends in here. Hi, guys. Yeah, like we're going to, in fact, if anybody here is watching this is in Notion Mastery, Marie and I are doing a workshop next Wednesday on that whole journal setup. And I want to make it like a build with me. So you'll get a chance to do it if you can come to that workshop. It's on Wednesday, the 31st. So yeah. And let's see what else questions. So Gray was asking, are the properties in the small task database the same as the big one or similar? I actually think they're different, Gray, and I think they might be. I can look and get screenshots and if anybody wants more information, you can just go to my website, sign up for the email list, drop me a line. I'm happy to answer questions, or you can DM me on Twitter too, and I'm happy to answer questions that way. Twitter is @NotionNerd and Notion Goth. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. So I think the thing with the like micro level and the upper level, I think if they're a little different, that gives you a different idea about things, right? And I actually, in my actions database, I used to have a status value for the longest time. I went through this whole iteration. I should do a video on this at some point where it was like, I did Eisenhower matrix, I did in Notion, I like scrapped all of it and like did nothing for a while in terms of like, how do you prioritize tasks? And what I've learned right now is this combo between how important is it and where do I want to do them in? And I just sort of flip between those two, and having that top three with an ordering. So top three today, next, and later. And it's literally like 3 items, and I'm saying this is the order. If I do that once a week, I find the rest sort of falls into place. It's like okay to have emerging tasks come in, be able to make decisions a little bit more fluidly, I feel like. So that's how I've been doing it lately, is sort of like handling those tasks. And then for the development projects, there's like a lot of categories: backlog, ideas, questions, active, in progress, on hold, because sometimes they'll ask for things and then I will make the executive decision that it's not a good idea. And so all of that needs to be tracked in that micro level database that I do with clients. So definitely I think and the more I'm thinking about it, I think the longer things have gone, the farther apart those two task lists have gotten in terms of how I categorize things. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so I think we're coming to an end now. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching and being here live or listening to the recording. And again, sort of thank you very much, Sandra, for sharing so much of your setup and sharing all the valuable nuggets that we have there. To summarize, I think, we can see the Notion is a really sort of powerful tool. You can see very sort of different approaches and how things can be done, from simple to complex, different types of projects. I mean, yes, you can, and spend a lot of time playing about with it. Some people say, that kind of defeats the object of productivity. But I think that, if you're getting joy from it and improving things in the long run, I personally feel that, the time I spend in configuration is worth the investment.
Yeah, I actually, two thoughts on that, and it's maybe a good thought to end on is, one is, I think the longer you're in Notion, the more you have to give yourself permission to play around sometimes, because we start to get into this mode of like, it's a tool, we're just trying to get things done. And the thing is that most of us came to Notion because we enjoy playing around in there, and like, that's part of enjoying it. And then the other thought I have is like, I never wanted to open Asana or Trello or Monday.com on a Saturday morning. Right? But I will gladly spend all weekend in Notion figuring out my meal plan and tracking my knitting projects and listing astrology things. So, I think that says a lot for the enjoyment I get out of the tool.
Bless, and so do I. And even though, actually, sometimes I do give Notion a break, and I don't put everything in Notion, as in the other tool I use is actually paper. I do have a bullet journal of paper. And that's because, like you, work a lot with the computer, and sometimes I just want a break, and that helps with creativity. But, it's a tool that sort of I kind of know what I want to put in my bullet journal, which is just sort of the daily stuff. Everything, like my second brain, as I said, getting things done, making sure I've captured everything and it's not lost. That's all digital in Notion.
Yeah.
So everyone's.
Yeah, I think that having a handwritten journal is really a wise thing. And I think there's a place for knitting the two together. So I'm with you on that score.
Yeah, so thanks again, everyone, for joining, particularly Sandra. And hopefully, maybe we'll get together on another online meetup.
I'd love it. Yeah.
And, see how things go. But thanks again. And
thanks for having me.
Good day, everyone, and have a good rest of the evening or day, whatever time zone you're in.
All right, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for
Bye,
coming.
everyone.
Bye.